Hi, I'm Jeff Hebner, Chicago writer and mural historian. Welcome to this first in a series of virtual mural tours, a project of the Chicago Public Art Group. The revitalizing Bronzeville on the south side of Chicago has been the historic center of the city's African-American culture, beginning with the Great Migration from the Jim Crow South to the industrial North earlier in the 20th century for jobs and opportunities. Few residents and visitors realize it, but Bronzeville was also the historic cradle of a revolutionary art movement in the late 1960s that soon spread across the country and continues to transform and uplift urban neighborhoods today, the community mural movement. In this virtual mural tour, we'll be visiting some of the most renowned street murals in the nation, most all of them located in a square-mile area on the south side. These vibrant vintage walls may have been painted decades ago, but they still speak to today's residents and their issues. One reason it's important that they keep being maintained and restored. Sparked by Black Power, 1960s social and protest movements, and African Americans' exclusion from the city's art institutions, the landmark outdoor mural Wall of Respect was initiated by Chicago artist William Walker and painted by him along with other members of the Organization of Black American Culture, both men and women, on the side of a store in 1967. This wall of black heroes inspired diverse groups of socially committed artists and activists to work with local communities and paint walls with messages of hope, heritage, pride, struggle, and resistance. In 1971, Walker and artist John Weber co-founded the Chicago Mural Group, a multiracial coalition and the longest-running community-based public art nonprofit in the U.S. It was later renamed the Chicago Public Art Group to reflect works created in more permanent media. Most of the classic murals we'll be visiting today were projects of this organization, and most have been restored to their original glory in recent years thanks to the group's commitment to preserving a significant, though often unsung feature of Chicago's and the nation's cultural heritage and art history. We're here at the Elliott Donnelly Youth Center Community Art Garden at 40th Street and Michigan Avenue. This unique art garden features what is perhaps the most preeminent collection of community public art in the city of Chicago. Its works were created by more than a dozen community muralists and sculptors, many of them African American, for several years in the mid-90s. This project was sponsored by the Open Lands Project, the Terra Museum of American Art, and the Chicago Public Art Group. One of the key works here, and the only one that predated the creation of the garden, is called Another Time's Voice Remembers My Passion's Humanity, a visually striking 1979 mural by the dynamic painting duo of Mitchell Catan and Calvin Jones. Catan was a colorful figure who was one of the nation's original outdoor community muralists, and Calvin Jones was a well-known painter and advertising illustrator. Amazingly, he was legally blind when they created most of their 6 murals together on the South Side. 4 remain on Chicago streets. In this mural and others, they depicted the continuity between the ancestral past and the urban present, combining Catan's free-flowing, almost psychedelic graphics and African textile patterns with Jones's contemporary portraits and scenes. Images that connected family, community, and nation. Their fragmented collage style, with a mix of figuration and abstraction, is a hallmark of their collaborative work. This mural had faded badly over the years, but Chicago Public Art Group artist Bernard Williams, with help from the Chicago Youth Centers, brought it back to life in 1993 and again in 2018.
This is my favorite community mural probably of all time. I restored this mural in 1993 with one assistant. The mural had to be completely sandblasted, which means much of the imagery was erased. We repainted the mural based on photographs and reference material from the original piece. The mural had a really strong impact on me. It's one of my favorite murals, so it was very influential the following year when I painted Feed Your Child the Truth. What was really interesting about restoring this mural was to have Calvin Jones make several visits to consult with me about the restoration. Calvin talked to me about drawing, about color, and about overall accuracy with restoring the original work.
The towering mural to the right here is Marcus Aquilana's monumental The Great Migration. This New Orleans-based artist has created many community and commission murals throughout the country, but he got his start here in Chicago in the 1980s with the Chicago Public Art Group. This is his local masterpiece, and it's also one of the masterworks of the national mural movement. The portraiture skills on this mural are just really amazing. For example, over there with the field worker and how the sun shining through his hat glares on his face. It's just really good outdoor mural painting. Completed in 1995, The Great Migration is in some ways a historical, more painterly extension of the Catan Jones mural next door. If that one showed the movement from Africa to America, this one documented the migration of African Americans from the rural South with its cotton farms and sharecropping and segregation to the urban North, mainly Chicago's Grand Boulevard or Bronzeville neighborhood, which became just as segregated. 40th Street and Martin Luther King Drive has been the site of several murals honoring Dr. King's legacy since the 1970s. Chicago was the first city to rename a street after the slain civil rights leader in 1968. Today you can see two vividly colored and spiritually uplifting murals by Dr. Cleveland Sidha Silla Weber, one behind me and one across the street. Sidha was perhaps the most prolific and multi-talented muralist in Chicago starting in the early 1970s. He was a doctor of theology, an ordained minister, a napropath, a musician, a poet, and a mentor to many young artists. When Walker abandoned his St. Martin Luther King mural on the west side of the old train embankment in 1981, which pictured King on a cross, he gave the wall to his young friend Sidha, who painted Earth Is Not Our Home in the same space. Sidha dedicated his life to revitalizing his neighborhood and other communities through the creation of public art and culture, seeking to spread his message of love, hope, beauty, and truth. Earth Is Not Our Home celebrates the sacredness and cosmic connection of all life, linking African, Native American, Christian, and other religious faiths, and includes Psalm 23 as well as Sidha's own invocative prayer to the realms beyond earth. Across the street, on the east embankment, Sidha painted Have a Dream in 1995, which replaced Dr. King, We Love You, a mural that he did in 1978, his first on his own. Have a Dream commemorated the religious and moral legacy of King, also using spiritual symbolism, and included many of King's quotations, as well as Sidha's own street prayers. In 2015, Sidha repainted both murals and updated Have a Dream to include the portraits of many local and national figures who were inspired by King's fight for equality, justice, and social change, including Barack Obama and other community activists. One striking aspect of Sidha's murals, the way you can recognize them immediately, is his frequent use of gold and purple paint, colors associated with royalty, his way of expressing the nobility and dignity of everyday people. An old train embankment here at 41st Street and beautiful Drexel Avenue is the site of A Time to Unite, a 1976 mural which was the first collaboration between Mitchell Catan and Calvin Jones, along with Justine Devan. A commercial artist, a noted painter, an advertising man, this was Calvin Jones's first mural with Mitchell Catan. They did several murals together in the 70s and 80s. This mural advocates for unity and defiance in the face of oppression. This complex mural is a call for racial solidarity during the bicentennial year of 1976, indicated by the giant clock. Catan noted that the Black community was unimpressed by patriotism and flag waving, and that people must fight for jobs and other programs in an America that wasn't living up to its ideals of equal opportunity and democratic promise. Note the people working hard to turn the clock forward, to make progress, while others wait in line to help move the community in a forward direction as well. Each of these three artists brought their own artistic strengths to this collaged mural, which combines the abstract and the representational. Jones's painterly figures, Catan's African patterns, and Devan's symbols and portraits. But as Jones said, nobody knows who did what, and that is important in any public art collaboration.
In 2003, 27 years after this mural was originally created, the mural was restored by the Chicago Public Art Group. As the restoration artist, I was actually able to consult with one of the original artists, Calvin Jones. Calvin visited the site and talked to me about his painting style, his use of color, and drawing. It was really great to have the original artist speak to me about his work.
A Time to Unite is really about time, about the movement from past into the future, from tribal drummers to city blues musicians, from Southern sharecropping family to urban tenements. I'm here at 49th Street and Wabash Avenue outside of a Chicago Housing Authority office building, which later became the Amalgamated Meat Cutters and Butcher Workmen Union. It's also the site of one of the nation's foremost outdoor labor murals, History of the Packing Worker, by Bill Walker, who's considered the father of the community mural movement. The Stockyards was a vast district a mile to the west of here that made Chicago hog butcher for the world, in poet Carl Sandburg's phrase. These unions were progressive, featuring a diverse workforce, and early on fought for civil rights. The yards closed in 1971, and 3 years later, the Illinois Labor History Society commissioned Walker to create this epic artwork. History of the Packing House Worker is perhaps Walker's most accomplished work compositionally. It's the one most influenced by his leading model, the great Mexican muralist Diego Rivera. He studied Rivera's classical mural style while earning his fine arts degree at what's now called the Columbus College of Art and Design in Ohio in the early 1950s. The left side of the mural depicts the history of the Amalgamated Meat Cutters and shows workers, union representatives, and their allies confronting bosses and their political allies demanding a union contract. This scene takes place on a chessboard, a recurrent Walker visual motif symbolizing competing social forces. The right side shows monumental workmen of all races, Black, Latino, East European, going about their jobs with a quiet, composed dignity. Many of Walker's murals, like this one, show confrontation and unity, conflict and resolution. Walker did a lot of research and interviews before painting this mural, and all that work shows. The artwork teems with many small incidents and details. One of my favorites is the image of a political boss placing rocks in the head of a reporter. This is one of only 3 Walker murals out of about 3 dozen that still survives on Chicago streets. But as passing time and the elements took their toll, Chicago Public Art Group muralist Bernard Williams, with help from the Chicago Housing Authority, restored it in 1998.
I was 10 years old when this mural was first painted in 1974. Fast forward 24 years, 1998, I was restoring this mural under the gentle consultation of Bill Walker himself. Fast forward another 22 years, and here we are now in front of the mural, and the mural is in need of another restoration.
We're now on 47th Street, the lively, historic heart of Bronzeville, and also the cultural, commercial, and civic center of Black Chicago since the early 20th century. At 47th Street and Calumet Avenue is the 1975 mural, Wall of Daydreaming and Man's Inhumanity Demand, by Bill Walker, Mitchell Catan, and various assistants. This is actually considered one of the most powerful street murals in the country. It's actually two murals in one side by Catan, one side by Walker. It's all about race, poverty, and the inner city, a lot like this one. By the 1970s, this neighborhood had fallen on hard times because of government policies, blue-collar job losses, and other factors, leading to disinvestment, decay, and crime. The mural paints a dazzlingly brilliant but harsh, unflinching portrait of grim inner-city realities, showing political causes and social effects. In the left panel, Catan indicts this once thriving black mecca for its drugs, vice, corruption, and other ills, while in the right panel, Walker condemns a nation's policies for its creation of poverty, inequality, and racial strife, which helped create many of those social conditions. Walker's section includes the assassinated bodies of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X sprawled on a chessboard, leaders cut down too soon to fulfill their promises. Here's a prostitute supporting a pimp in a flashy Cadillac strapped to her back. And here's a greedy developer preying on starving children as they hold out empty plates. In the middle is Walker's pusher of 47th Street, the kind of drug kingpin he often saw while working South Side streets for decades. The entire wall is bracketed by Walker's Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazi figures, a stark visual reminder that white supremacy and racist hatred are, as King knew, ultimately the driving force behind the creation of poor, segregated communities. Yet in this mural, there are also signs of hope. Catan's panel urges viewers to find strength in their African and cultural heritage, and Poet Sidha's positive, prayer-like text calls on us to love one another. And also today, 47th Street is on the rebound, being reimagined as a cultural district. Despite the hard times that this neighborhood has been through over all these years, this mural has never been graffiti. That's been like 45 years or so, which is a sign of how the community accepts and values this very critical work. Still, all outdoor murals fade over time. And in 2003, this mural was restored by the Chicago Public Art Group artists Damon Reed and Moses Ball. I'm here at 41st Street and Cottage Grove Avenue, where Justine Devan painted Black Women Emerging, a magnificent statement of militant feminist empowerment, as well as a tribute to all the many female-headed households in the neighborhood in 1977. Devan, a Philadelphia artist, moved to Chicago in the mid-1970s with the express purpose of learning from and working with Bill Walker, Mitchell Catan, and other Chicago mural group artists. She fulfilled that goal. Catan advised her on this project and also watched her back as she contended with gang turf issues around this wall. She worked with girls and young women from the neighborhood to portray women in various roles. As a West African, brandishing an Ashanti fertility doll, as a rifle-toting revolutionary, as a recent graduate with diploma aspiring to enter the legal or medical fields, as well as mothers and wives raising children at home. The images call on women to surpass barriers and summon their ancestral strength in the struggle to gain access to all vocations. This idea is also symbolized by the image of a woman breaking the bonds of domestic servitude by breaking a broom. The Chicago Public Art Group worked with the local community to revive this inspiring statement, and it was repainted by Bernard Williams in 2001.
We're here at 50th and Cottage Grove Avenue. It's the site of a mural I created in 1994 with a team of artists. The mural is titled Feed Your Child the Truth. The mural celebrates the life of Reverend Jessie Ma Houston. She was a civil rights and prison reform minister, one of the first women to do this. Reverend Jessie Ma Houston was one of the founding members of Operation Push, which is now called Rainbow Push, which is actually just across the street.
Williams's monumental mural features her portrait and details of her life, based on family oral histories and research from Operation Push. It also includes an image of a protest march and a portrait of a prisoner who was helped by the activist. Feed Your Child the Truth was the first major mural by Williams, who'd go on to be one of the city's most active and vital muralists and public sculptors. This mural is also about the passing down of cultural heritage and an homage to Williams's own influences, like the collage murals of Calvin Jones and Mitchell Catan, with its African masks, textile patterning, and figure elements. Williams has restored several Catan-Jones collaborations.
In 1994, the mural was created over a heavily graffitied wall. As you can see, the graffiti has returned, which makes this wall a great candidate for repainting and restoration.
Thanks for joining us on this virtual Bronzeville Community Mural Tour, brought to you by the Chicago Public Art Group, along with the Illinois Humanities Council and other funders. But this tour only showed a handful of the hundreds of community murals that have been created throughout the city in the last 50 years. Chicago is a city of neighborhoods, and we look forward to bringing you other virtual tours highlighting classic street murals from the Chicago mural movement. These murals are a part of a history that's still living, still changing, still transforming Chicago's diverse communities. And a vital part of that living history involves preserving and protecting these public art treasures. Because they're located outdoors, murals suffer from the ravages of time, weather, neglect, and development. They need to be continually maintained. In the meantime, you can visit the Chicago Public Art Group's website to learn how we're still uniting artists and communities, and how you can help support our public art for future generations to enjoy.